Yo, yo, what is going on? Impromptu opening day stream. Thanks for coming to hang out, pre-gaming some of the action here. I'm gonna see how many formula errors I have today. If you guys can even see my screen. Happy opening day, John. Now, when, now. Brad, what's up? Nez GM. Thanks, guys, for coming through. We've got a lot to cover, and let's see. Can someone tell me? Man, I feel like I'm hosting a meeting. Can you guys see? Can you tell me if you can see my screen? There's a lot of numbers here. I'm going to go through. The plan is to go through maybe 15, 20 minutes on Draftkings, pitchers, stacks, best hitters, and then same for Underdog. So thumbs up means you can see my screen. We are so back. So yeah, full slate. We got a couple of rainouts. I've got this filtered. Let me go to the DraftKings pitcher tab. Fewer formula errors here. GM. So yeah, a fullish slate. Team totals. It's cold, but a couple of team totals over 5. So for DraftKings pitchers, pitcher is fairly flat. One thing that you'll notice, and matters a lot for Underdog because of the quality start. So you need to go 6 innings, which I'd be surprised. I don't have anyone projected to go over 6 innings today. A lot of 5. So if we get a quality start, we might get 1 or 2 on the slate, but honestly, I'd be surprised if we do. So that makes pitching pretty flat, and it translates to DraftKings as well. It's hard to rack up big stats and separate from the field. You'll notice here the top 3 pitchers that I have projected are Jesus Luzardo, Scubal, and Targlass now, all 20 to 21 points. The field is pretty split on them, 33% each. But what you'll notice here, and what I've formula that I've worked on throughout the years for what I think is about closer to optimal, they're all 3 are about 22%. So, you gain a lot of leverage here with possibly going down to Cole Reagan's giving up, 2 or 3 points, against the Twins. I like the Twins. It's like a high risk play here. Like the Twins, I've got like a 9% dock because they're, one of the better offenses on the slate, but pretty decent strikeout rate for Reagan's, pretty decent strikeout rate for the Twins. So that's one easy leverage spot for DraftKings at pitcher, Cole Reagan's. Though I do like the Twins as well. Basically, I'm seeing like slight positive leverage on basically any of the pitchers, except for these top 3, 6% really. This is from SaberSim. If it changes over the next 2 to 3 hours before lock. Oh, by the way, I should point out the plan is for MLB or in full season subs. I'm going to try and put this up on the site. It's still work in progress before I can go public. So I wanted to get this stream out so you guys can see, a little preview. But the plan is to get this, daily sheet or whenever I'm playing MLB up on the site so you guys can play around, see my projections. Hopefully export to Underdog as well. GM, I've been seeing you in the streets on Underdog this morning. So yeah, like guys like Zach Eflin, Cole Reagan's, if they're really this low owned, like 5 and 6% or sub 10%, or even these guys at 15% versus, guys that are only a couple percent more, likely to be optimal. So not that these are bad spots, right? Jesus Luzardo against the Pirates, I believe, at home, good ballpark. Tariq Skubal, possibly the best pitcher on the slate. Oh, there's Pablo Lopez, but really good pitcher against a bad White Sox team in a good park. Like these are all good spots, but you're gonna have to pick and choose. And then as far as like dumpster diving, Garrett Crochet at 5,500, you might only get 4 innings or even less, honestly. But at 5,500, it's an interesting way to fit in, Dodgers bats, things like that. Frankie Montas, we're stacking Nationals a bit on Underdog. 4.2 total for the Nats is really quite decent in Great American Ballpark, but at 7,500, decent savings here. I've got him, optimal more often than it's showing. his ownership will be. Yeah, Bat has Reagans at 4%. Yeah, I mean, like, the Twins total is 4. The other like premium spots are more in like the 3.5 range. But he's a good to great strikeout pitcher and a good to great strikeout matchup. So if you're gonna get a third of the ownership or a fifth of the ownership of the top guys, I think that's a really interesting way to go. Um, Also, Framber Valdez, I think is okay too. Obviously, I'm a Yankee homer, but Yankees definitely a strikeout, um, kind of strikeout lineup here. It's a pretty scary matchup. Oops. Obviously, really high isolated power team, about 200 for the lineup. But yeah, but I would say like pick one of these three. Luzardo probably my favorite. You get a little bit of savings, and it's just will he be the highest owned of the bunch? But I do like Luzardo a lot, and I do like Cole Reagans. I'm not against Garrett Crochet even in 3 or 4 innings, and Eflin is all right here. So that's kind of DraftKings pitcher overview. Want to take a look at hitters in offenses. So if you'll notice here, the Reds 5.1 total. This average value. So this value, it's like it's kind of a contrived stat that I use to help sort my stuff. You'll see as we look at like the individual hitters. Just know it's all relative in scale. So the Reds kind of jump off the page because 5.1 total or GM. So the Reds are in the most premium matchup against the worst pitcher on the slate in the best ballpark on the slate, right? So Josiah Gray, 5.3 expected FIP, 5.1 expected runs. So yeah, the Reds and the Dodgers are in the 2 premium spots on the slate. However, the average ownership for the top 3 to 5 bats is 25+% for the Reds. So obviously, if you're playing top heavy GPPs and a quarter of the field has the Reds and only 20% of the field gets paid, it's really hard to separate. So if you're hand building, be mindful of how you go about that. Obviously, on DraftKings, they're really good spots. We'll talk about some specifics there, but I've got them as the optimal stack only about 7% of the time, and they're 25+% owned. So you'll notice like it's really hard to get positive leverage on any of the high owned stacks, right? So it's all kind of relative here, but like the Dodgers at 9%, the most I think the most likely. Of course, you have to like you probably have to dumpster dive a bit at pitcher, but the variance between their optimal percent and the average own is pretty tight here. The Astros as well. I like Nestor Cortez, but he's a fairly average pitcher. In a really dangerous team in a pretty good hitting environment, good weather in Houston. So Detroit, we'll talk about Detroit more on Underdog. I think they're really, really sneaky there against Crochet, who's, averaging, you might only get 3 to 4 innings out of him. So you face a Chicago White Sox bullpen that, I couldn't really tell you anything about. Let's go. Yankees in a good spot. Only projected to score 4 runs, but the individual projectors there, like the top 5-6 of that lineup. Yeah, I know F1 is good, but LOL, Toronto projections. Yeah, I don't even think F1 is that great, but I believe the game is in Tampa, or even if it's in Toronto, I'm sure it's in Tampa based on this. He's a pretty good pitcher. Toronto is pretty right hand heavy. So and historically speaking, at least on DraftKings, this top stack percent takes into account pricing as well. When we look at the underdog, so like Toronto's at 1.3% top stack. An underdog, it's closer to 4% where we don't care about pricing. So a bit more viable there. They're just kind of expensive and tough to make work on DraftKings, but in a large field GPP, you can kind of do as you please there. So that's the stacks. Just look at position kind of breakdowns real quick here. You notice when this goes live, you'll have access to this. I think it's a really good dashboard. I'm going over it way too quick to get meaningful insights, but I have like the top 10 to 30 for outfield, kind of all nice and neat here. Like a little dashboard of batting order, handedness versus the pitcher handedness, team total, the pitcher FIP, the projected WOBA for the matchup. Like if I can only look at one stat, to tell me how good a hitter is, it's WOBA. I also have isolated power here as well. This is matchup plus baseline stats. So obviously, Yainer Diaz is not a projected 250 ISO hitter on the season, but maybe it's closer to, I don't know, 200. But given the handedness and matchup with Nestor Cortez and the game environment, he gets like, let's say a 20% boost. It's all under the hood there somewhere. So in this H value here, like anything north of 2 or like 2.2 to mid twos is pretty good. It's just a way, it's not pure value, right? Like 8 points divided by 2.6 is, closer to 4. But what this does is kind of rates raw points a little bit more because you can't just like slam the value all the way. So anyway, at catcher, Yainer Diaz looks like a really good spot. Ryan Jeffers batting second at 2,600 is probably going to be pretty popular in, favorable splits. He's probably won't get Gabe Kapler, but famous last words. Will Smith at 3,400 is a steal. And then you have Jake Rogers as a classic lefty, righty versus lefty. CJ Abrams, flag plant. Freddie Freeman, wow, the Dodgers are, I got to check, like, are my source, is the pricing right? Because these look really cheap for the Dodgers. Now these prices are all wrong, so that's fantastic. Thank you to Fantasy Labs. So we'll go off of this page. Let's just go to the stacks page and just look at the. I'll have to update these salaries. Maybe this is FanDuel salaries or something. Yeah. So all right, we'll come back to a place where pricing doesn't matter, and go to Underdog. Prices are wrong. Ignore the last 15 minutes, more or less, but directionally correct. Underdog. So pitcher landscape for Underdog. If you're doing 6-man drafts, just like the Shane Bieber is the top ADP pitcher. I have him as the second best pitcher on the slate at 14.2. But what you'll notice here is there's 7 guys projected within a point of him. Gallen, Castillo, Skubal, Glasnow, Luzardo, Framber Valdez. So I don't think the Bieber premium really makes much sense. Plus, he's the lowest strikeout projected guy of the bunch. So, well, in this matchup, actually, it's it's a pretty strong strikeout matchup here against Oakland. So he might lead the slate in strikeouts, but it's really pretty tight. All that matters. Like the fewer innings, it's hard to separate at pitcher. But so yeah, these are I've been going a lot of Zach Gallen. I think it's a good combination. Like the Rockies lineup outside, of course, is pretty bad. Zach Gallen is really good. Hashtag analysis. I have him as my top pitcher on the slate. Luis Castillo is fine. Like Tarik Skubal, I think, has really good strikeout upside. Tyler Glasnow. If I were to IKB some stuff, he is the best strikeout pitcher on the slate, and possibly has, as he pitched earlier in the season, he might be might have a longer leash than some of these guys. So yeah, I like Glasnow. I have him ranked 5th in score, but if I were to like IKB, I'd probably have him 2 or 3 behind Gallen, maybe Bieber. But then as you go, like there's a lot to gain going in a 6-man draft where Bieber is drafted 100% of the time, Gallen, Castillo, Glasnow, these 4, I would say, are drafted 100% of the time and project for, 13 to 14 points. But you can go down to Cole Reagans at 12 points. Yu Darvish, I haven't clicked his name once. I don't even know if I've seen him drafted. 12 points. Pablo Lopez is drafted a bit. Framber Valdez, some leverage against the Yankees that are drafted every single. Nick, good morning. So you get a lot of leverage going with, Valdez, Reagan, Steele, Darvish. Lizardo is one that I like. He's not 100% drafted. I really like Lizardo. And then I don't know. I was tempted to give Nez the shout for Mitch Keller, but thanks guys for joining. Oh yeah, you did pitch last week in Korea, so he's got a what did he pitch, 1 inning? But uh but yeah, was good. I've not been paying attention to spring training, and I more or less treated the games last year or last week as spring training. Am I remembering correctly that you Darvish pitched like 1 inning and gave up a bunch of runs, or was that? Oh no, that was Yoshi on the other side. But yeah, I think they all got lit up in Korea. So yeah, Logan Webb also, he's kind of boring, but decent matchup against a non-threatening Padres team. He's a good pitcher. He's just not a big strikeout guy. Yeah, you was, man. So yeah, that's my pitcher thoughts. Like, I think it's like I would rank it Gallen 1, Glass now 2, Bieber 3, Castillo, Scubal, Lizardo. But I think guys like Darvish and Cole Reagans are worth dumpster diving a bit here. And then top stacks. So you'll notice ADP is changing a little bit. Elidel Cruz was the top ADP pick of the day, and then the lineup got released and he's batting 6th. So he's been sliding down a bit. Actually, I think he's still like okay-ish if you want some access there. But Dodgers top stack, you have Mookie, Ohtani, Freddie Freeman all going round 1 pretty much every single time. Ohtani, I think, is my 101. We'll get there in a minute. Arizona goes early. Corbin Carroll is the top pick there, but you have Christian Walker, Ketel Marte. The thing that I really like with the Dodgers in Arizona is going down their lineups for stacks, and we can hit on that. But this is really interesting. Because I've not clicked Cleveland once, and they're showing up as my 4th best stack of the day. Jose Ramirez goes early, and then I have like no interest in that team, but something to take a second look at. And then as Houston, Infinity Moreno. Yeah, there's a lot like Moreno, Eugenio Suarez, Lourdes Gurriel. A lot to like their handedness advantage for Arizona against Kyle Freeland. But, we'll talk about Houston. Altuve grades really well. Detroit is one that I've been clicking a lot. You're only going to face Crochet probably once, maybe twice at the top of the lineup. Might face him twice, but then so I really like Torkelson there, and we'll see how fancy we get. Washington is one that doesn't get drafted very often besides CJ Abrams. They have some power in that lineup. We'll see how that lineup comes in. Texas, some good hand disadvantage. But yeah, one thing I'll note, like all this to say, I'm not going to list every single team. The top 3 teams, like the top 2, Dodgers and Arizona, go in every first round. Cincinnati, Ellie goes first round-ish, and a lot of the other guys get drafted. So they're kind of a cut above at 7%, but there's the whole rest of the slate is like 4 to 5%. So, it's really hard to not fall into the trap of like clicking Aaron Judge and then Glaber, et cetera. Where the Yankees versus like the Cubs, who are like often not drafted, the Rays have like not clicked at all, San Diego, are all like equal or more likely to be the team you need. So yeah. Do we want to look at? Let's look at like total projections for Underdog. So I've got Ohtani way in, just like looking at versus like the pick'ems, like these all skew higher because average is going to be higher than median, or mean is higher than median. And for some reason, I think everything is just kind of skewing a little bit higher today, but it's all relative for rankings. But I've got Ohtani way up the top. Freeman, Mookie pretty much interchangeable. Aaron Judge right up there. One thing you'll note, like Max Muncy is really high up, and I think his ADP is like in the 20s. So like I've got like 50-60% Max Muncy. Maybe it's a trap. He's going to strike out 3 times, but Max Muncy is a really easy add-on. Granted, his ownership is going to be pretty high. Corbin Carroll, there was some discussion yesterday in Discord that they're facing a lefty. Like, why is Corbin Carroll going so high? Like, even though he does not have the handedness advantage, like he's the best player. B, he gets a lot of his value not necessarily from the bat, but also his legs. And you're only going to face Kyle Freeland probably twice. I would say it's close to 0% likelihood that they face Kyle Freeland a third time or let him go through the lineup 3 times, especially on opening day. And the lineup is going to be set up to face lefties. So they're going to boost up Marte, Walker, like all the righties. So Corbin Carroll is going to be really protected. So yeah, like Corbin Carroll projections wise is still the top Diamondback. Christian Walker is pretty close, and Ketel Marte is pretty close too. And then Chip Guy Moreno, like Moreno is neck and neck with Juan Soto, who goes a lot earlier, pretty close to Jose Ramirez. So it's very flat, right? Granted, he's not a huge power guy. He kind of is like jumping off the page red here for isolated power metric, but 1 or 2 doubles and some RBIs goes a long way. Eugenio, yeah, we got Lourdes Gurriel is like way up here. Eugenio is not far. So yeah, it gets pretty flat here. Altuve is really up high. Jordan Alvarez, again, he's a lefty against the lefty Nestor Cortez. But again, the Yankees only have 1 or 2 lefty relievers, and he's batting way up in the order. Plus, like Jordan is just like #good. So, he could definitely still go deep off of Nestor. Cincinnati. So let me transition here to some stack stuff. I want to look at Cincinnati. So funny enough, right? I have, this is DraftKings points, but it's fairly close. I don't feel like reworking it, but I will. I will before I publish this. But Will Benson and Jake Fraley with the lefty versus righty batting before Ellie. I have projected for slightly more points than Ellie. Granted, like if you want access, Ellie ceiling is super high, right? Not listed here is like, steals and whatnot, but Fraley and Benson, average-ish power guys, but hitting high in that order. Jonathan India batting first doesn't go necessarily in every draft. Christian CES, Christian Encarnacion is the big power guy here in the middle of the lineup. Candelario, switch hitter. Spencer Steer batting 7th is a little disappointing. But again, like this is a really cheap way to stack, but it's popular. Dodgers here, like kind of blow up the color chart. Ignore the salaries here because like there's no salaries in Underdog anyway. Mookie, Ohtani, Freeman, that's the first round. But then you have Max Muncy, Will Smith, I've been adding on a lot. Teoscar, Outman, really good ways to hit the outfield slot. Arizona, I think, we talked about the early guys, but Moreno could bat in that middle of that lineup. Lourdes Gurriel, Eugenio Suarez. Let's look at Cleveland because this one was like kind of shocking to me, and I wonder like why. Jose Ramirez goes early-ish, but if you want him, you can have him, right? In the second round. Plus, like ADP literally does not matter. But let's take a look. Like no Quan for me. Like, what is this isolated power? Like, how do you have an isolated power number below 100? In versus a lefty too. Josh Naylor. If Naylor homers off a lefty, gonna OD on dopamine. Like, how many times are you gonna face Alex Wood? Right? Like, Alex Wood is not. I mean, it's opening day. They might try and keep him to face Naylor twice, but then on average, you're still going to get 2 more ABs against not Alex Wood, and maybe it's a righty that comes on. Ooh, revenge game for Laser Ramon Laureano. Like some pop, right? It's not like a big pop lineup. So I don't know. Like this is more of like a Jose Ramirez and pick one, where I think a lot of Jose Ramirez probably comes just by himself, but adding a nailer like Laureano, like Andres Jimenez, is a lefty, but Jimenez, he can hit lefties a little bit. Plus, again, the lower down, if he hits fifth, and I don't know if this lineup is final or not, but if he hits fifth, Alex Wood on average is probably like 50-50 to face him twice, I think, based on how this game goes, and like 0% to face him three times. So I don't hate Jimenez there. Astros, Chas McCormick and Yanner Diaz are guys that I'm like super high on. Diaz, he swings at everything and makes contact with a lot of things and hits the ball hard. He just won't ever walk, which is fine for this game. And Chas McCormick fits the outfield spot. Alex Bregg's very cheap too. So Altuve is one of my top, projected guys on the slate. Alvarez is fine. Tucker, is fine, but I really like McCormick and Diaz for lesser owned. And then this is I hope I haven't said this yet because this is my favorite, like sneaky stack of the day is Detroit. Asterisk here. I don't know if this lineup is final. Let me see. Detroit. All right, this lineup. There is a final lineup, and it's not this one. Verling is hitting fifth. Andy Ibanez is leading off. Torkelson 2. No Gio Urshela. Verling batting fifth. So yeah, I'll update this, but I don't think I'll publish that. But yeah, things to keep in mind, like Verling hitting fifth, Mark Canyon batting for Torkelson 2. So I really like Torkelson, and Gio Urshela is not in the lineup. But 1, 2, 3 for hitting in the top 5. Riley Green, it's against a lefty, but again, like he's only going to face Crochet once, max twice. So I don't hate that if you need an outfielder, but Torkelson I really like. I think Torkelson is one of the best home run spots on the day. It's not a great ballpark and it's probably kind of cold, but really good there for very, very low ownership. The Nats, CJ Abrams, projects well, but the power is going to last year's power is going to have to be real for him to separate. So if you're going Abrams, I don't like the Abrams one off. I'd rather stack it. Is this lineup final? Lane Thomas, Winker, Gallo. Yeah, this lineup looks pretty. Yeah, this lineup is final. So Gallo. I don't know if he's an infielder or an outfielder, but really like that. Obviously, the power play. And again, like Abrams 1, Gallo 5, he may not be driving him in, but if Abrams is getting on base multiple times, it's likelier that Gallo gets more ABs than if Frankie Montas stinks. Gallo's an outfielder. So Joey Gallo, I think, is a good shout as well to add into your Abrams. And again, he might be lesser stacked because it's the 1-5. Yeah, Underdog has it there. Just my data feed for this is, I must have updated it too long ago. Joey Meneses kind of stinks, like really stinks. But yeah, Lane Thomas, Jesse Winker. But I like Joey Gallo here. Lane Thomas is probably fine. And Jesse Winker's got to be close to 0% owned. Texas, you got Marcus Semien, Adolis Garcia. Langford, sadly, is not in the player pool. Evan Carter against the lefty. Justin Steele, pretty good. Face him 2 times. He's okay. He's not drafted very often, but, I do probably stick to the Seager, Adolis. Josh Young, I think, is pretty good batting in the middle of this lineup. Is this the correct lineup? Oh, it's lineup. This is a later game, so it probably is not in yet. But yeah, I like Josh Young here. Like this top 4, Seager probably not my favorite. I don't want to overreact too much to the lefty thing, but yeah, Simeon, Adolis, Josh Young. Seattle's an interesting one. So Julio goes at like the 1-2 turn range, and then nobody else goes. So I think if you're gonna take Seattle, and a 4.3 total is pretty good. I think it's raining, so the roof will probably be on in Seattle. So, righty. for Julio, like not a problem whatsoever. And if you're going to stack it, I think you might as well. Or if you're going to pick him, I think you might as well stack it. That's a common theme. I think I'm going like all 3 2s. And what 3 2 is, if you don't know and you somehow find this channel, a stack of 3 from one team and 2 from another. And a slate this big, I'd rather, yeah, I don't think you need, it's hard to get there all with one offs, but so if Julio could be the only guy who does anything, but if he has a good game, the likelihood that, let's say, Cal Raleigh gets an extra AB and or with him on base, or hey, Polanco, switch hitter, middle of the lineup, JP Crawford, lefty, could be driven in by him. Mitch Garver, I don't like as much as Cal Raleigh, but yeah, I really like these 4, picking 2 or 3. You start with like this is one where if you're picking 5th and you get whichever Dodger falls, let's say Freddie Freeman, you take Julio, then you can go Muncy, Cal Raleigh, and fill it out with, either a third Mariner or a third Dodger, whether that's, Josh Outman or, Will Smith, somebody like that, or Polanco. Miami Marlins are not a team that I've thought of yet. Josh Chisholm projects pretty well. Araya is really not the best for the format here. I don't mind taking a shot on Josh Bell, switch hitter batting towards the top of this lineup. Brian De La Cruz, but I also like Jake Berger, batting 5th here. Sandwiched between the 2 lefties, second most pop on the team, behind Jazz. So I like a little Jazz Berger mini, but I haven't done it personally yet. So San Diego, Fernando Tatis, I saw his ADPs like in the 25 range, so he goes pretty much every draft. He was a first round pick this year in the Dinger. So I think people are just kind of value hounding it. Like Logan Webb's a good pitcher and prevents long ball type stuff. I don't know what San Diego Slackers is. I don't know if this guy is like touting, something getting, some hashtag free advertising on the soon to be famous DFS made easy. But yeah, against Logan Webb, it's not the best matchup. Not a lot of pop here. Like Manny Machado, probably the second guy in like a mini stack. Jake Cronenworth is not going to be high owned. I think I kind of prefer him over Bogarts if you're talking about trying to run into some accidental power. Tampa, a team with not a bunch of power. There's a lot more righties than I would have expected in this lineup, which is making me scratch my head, at least metaphorically. Brennan Lowe or Lau, I think it's Lowe. Lau. Brennan Lau, really good hitter, handedness advantage. Like, is he a pinch hit risk? Maybe, but I think he's pretty good batting towards the top of this lineup. I think you take the 2 or 3 ABs that you get off of Barrios and just see if you can survive the Tampa Bay shenanigans. Given that isolated power, Randy Rosarena, really good way to fit outfield in like Andy Diaz. I'm surprised that like Harold Ramirez is in this lineup and batting 4th against a righty. Isaac Paredes, probably not the spot. Jose Siri, I'd love to play him against, lefty. I think it's a little off the wall. So like I'd probably stick with Randy, Lau, maybe Andy. Got 10 minutes before 2. I'll try and get us out of here. By then, Cubs. The Cubs one I really like. Happ and Bellinger, my 2 favorites here, batting towards the top. Man, now I'm like scared, but I don't think this lineup is in yet. But Happ and Bellinger, well, the thing that's good about the Cubs is that these top 3 guys are all outfield eligible on Underdog, so outfield gets thin pretty quick or toward the end of the draft at least. So this is one where if you start with some infielders early and you're trying to get a low owned like stack and feel comfortable that the outfielder's going to be there, you can queue up. These 4 actually are all outfield eligible, unless Morel is an infield for this slate. He might be, but at least these 3 are outfield eligible with good power against Evaldi, who's good, not great, can definitely run into some power here. Morel is an infielder. was outfielder on the in the pre-draft stuff, but or preseason drafts. But yeah, these three really good outfielders. Like Morel has, as good a pop as any of them. If you want to fit in an infielder, Dansby Swanson, like, Yankees, I've been drafting a ton. Aaron Judge, like this is one where like they don't rate that well, but their top 3 to 4 are up there with anyone. Aaron Judge, obviously, even against Valdez, but he goes, 1-2 turn. I think that's justified. Giancarlo is like a very, very low owned outfielder. Glaber is probably my go-to tack on here. Soto falls a lot. So I only get Soto if he falls in like the 3rd or 4th round. He's not a target of mine, but I'll do it in stacks in case they knock Valdez out of the game and he gets more favorable. Like as the game goes on. So this is what you have to keep in mind with stacking. Like Juan Soto versus Valdez, like in the first inning, is not an ideal matchup. But if your stack does well, any matchup for the most part, unless they do have Josh Hader, but for the most part, and Juan Soto's pretty well protected here with righties. Any pitcher he faces the rest of the game is going to be a better matchup than Framber Valdez. So if you survive that first AB, and Aaron Judge does some damage, like the next time up and the next time up for Juan Soto are going to be more and more favorable. Anthony Volpe I like a lot here, batting 6th as well. Twins, one of my favorites. Like you can queue him up and leave the draft, and no one's going to snipe you. Byron Buxton, outfielder, really good. Play him while he's healthy. He's not going to get taken out of the game. Ryan Jeffers batting 2nd was like an eye opener. They're actually projected for 4.6. So I've got to just make sure that this is feeding in correctly. But yeah, Byron Buxton, Ryan Jeffers, Royce Lewis, Correa, like, okay. But I really like this top 3, and they're not very high drafted. And then I'll try and go just the highlights I want to get out of here in a minute. The Red Sox, like Devers goes, like Duran, not much power. Casas has a little more power. Yeah, I think it's fine. The Giants here against you, Darvish, like I'm surprised that they're so low, but it's not a great ballpark here. Not a lot of power. Not much to say about the Giants. Toronto, Vlad Spring. Like the problem with Toronto has always been this, and this is kind of why they got Varsho, and it hasn't really worked out. They're so right hand heavy at the top of this lineup. It's really hard against good right handers to feel really good about Toronto. But as far as name recognition and like talent, they're definitely up there. I haven't gone there myself. I haven't seen anyone even do it. Kansas City, it's like wit or nothing. I think you might as well, like if you're going there against like Pablo Lopez, I kind of like the Vinny P shout here. A little bit of power back to back in the lineup. Pittsburgh, is O'Neal Cruz confirmed batting 9th? No, O'Neal Cruz is batting 6th. Connor Joe leading off. Henry Davis 5. So O'Neal Cruz, like even if you go from 9 to 6, Red Sox might be the only team I haven't drafted yet today. I don't hate it. Like Castillo's good, but like the top of the lineup sets up well handedness wise. But Pirates, like even if you move O'Neal Cruz up to 6, it's not going to move the needle much. Not a great ballpark in Miami. Brian Hayes, as much as he's going to win MVP at 175-1. I don't think this is the slate for it. St. Louis, like if you want to get super fancy and say like leveraging its glass now, I just don't think there's enough power here. Like Nolan Gorman, batting 3rd, like maybe, but I don't think so. And plus they're like almost all infielders, which kind of stinks. Oakland is so nice. I listed them twice for some reason. I'll have to look at that. I don't think there's enough there. Like I understand the theoretical leverage against Bieber. I don't think there's enough there. And then the last team that I have here, the White Sox against Tariq Skubal. I don't hate, like they're at home. It's cold, but the wind is blowing out and they're at home. And, Skubal's good, but again, you're only getting 5 to 6 innings, or you're getting 3 to 4 innings of not screwball in like a Tigers bullpen that I don't know anything about. So I'll pretend that they're bad for the sake of this argument. Um, Man, I think this projection is pretty low on Luis Robert. Um, I really like Luis Robert, Eloy, Andrew Vaughn. Like this 3.45 at a fraction of a percent, I think is a really interesting. I might have to jump in the streets and start getting after it. So that's it. If you're still here, thank you. I couldn't possibly imagine a more, you know, less interesting host, but we'll try and do better next time. If you have any questions, shoot me a DM on Twitter or at me on Discord, or go to easydfs.xyz. I have a chat box there. Even if you're not a subscriber, nothing is up yet because I have formulas to sort out still in data feeds. But yeah, this is the kind of thing you'll be able to look forward to going forward, and I have a chat box there if you have any questions. So good luck, and I'll see you in the streets in these last few hours before opening day kick. Peace.